Hi students, Miss McKittrick here. I just wanted to take an opportunity to make a little video to review the lesson that we did yesterday. We noticed a lot of you are making the same mistakes, so I wanted to go over the answers, and then I want to have you guys, after I review, go back and make your corrections, and then we're going to have a little quiz over this diagram below. So before we get going, this diagram below is the process of photosynthesis in one diagram. And it says that right here, the process of photosynthesis. That should help you answer that first question. Question number one, what process is being shown? The process of photosynthesis. This process is simply where we are taking energy from the sun and using it to make two things, oxygen and sugar. That is what this equation is showing us, that we're making sugar and oxygen. And this takes place in a special part of a plant cell called the chloroplast. That helps you answer question number two. What structure does this take part in? The chloroplast. And actually what you're seeing in this diagram is this circular structure that we're seeing is a chloroplast. Now, there are two parts to this diagram. The first part is called the light-dependent reactions. It is called dependent because this part needs or depends on light. And that light that it needs or depends on comes from our ultimate source of light, which is the sun. The second part over here, the Calvin cycle, is another word or term for the light, what we call independent. When you are independent, that simply means that you do not need something. This means that this reaction does not need light. It can happen in the light, it can happen in the dark, it doesn't really need it. This is the second part of photosynthesis. So photosynthesis happens in two parts. Now, if you notice at the top, there were two super important words that I wanted to emphasize through this entire assignment. Those words were reactants and products, okay? Reactants are all the arrows pointing in. Products are all the arrows that are coming out. So the next question said, number three, what are the reactants of the light dependent? So first I have to find light dependent, which is over here. And then I have to look at all the arrows coming in. There are three reactants: light from the sun, H2O, which is another term for water, and this molecule over here, ADP plus P. We're not really sure what that stuff is yet, and that doesn't really matter to answer the question. So going back down, there are three answers: light, water, H2O, and ADP plus P, which, like I said, we don't really know what that is. All I know is that they're reactants. How do I know? Because all of these arrows are pointing in. The next question is going to ask us about the products. Products, which I'm going to do in green, are the arrows that are coming, sorry, the screen keeps shifting a little bit, are the arrows that are coming out. The arrows that are coming out. So if you look here, there are two things coming out. ATP, once again, we haven't really learned about this yet, but what I will say is it's got those little kind of star-like structures around it. This is a form of another word for saying energy. Okay, so ATP or energy, and O2, which is oxygen gas. So what are the products? There are two of them, O2, oxygen, and this molecule called ATP, which I just explained, gives us energy. All right, that's for the light dependent. Once again, that is the part that needs light coming from the sun. Now we're going to move over to this part, which is also known as the Calvin cycle or the light independent. It does not need light. So if I move down here, what is another name for the light independent? Hint, look for the cycle above. So the cycle that we're talking about is called the Calvin cycle. named after the scientist that discovered it. Now, what are the reactants? We have to look for all the arrows pointing in. This time, we only have 2 reactants. We have one reactant right here, ATP, and we have one right here, CO2, which is another term for carbon dioxide. So what are the reactants? Sorry, it keeps shifting up. CO2, the arrow is pointing in, and ATP, like I mentioned, is some form of energy. Going back up to the top, now our next question is, what are the products? I'm going to do those in green. Products are the arrows coming out. I see one arrow pointing out. Sorry, I'm not sure why I didn't switch to green. Down here, and you have to be careful. The other arrow pointing out is up here. So I have 2 products, sugars and ADP plus P. So what are the products? Are sugars and ADP plus P, which, like I said, this ATP thing is just a form of energy. So essentially what's happening in this diagram is, and I use a different color to kind of summarize, water and sunlight come in, they get turned into this thing called ATP, which is a form of energy. The waste product for us, which is good, is oxygen. That is given off. Then we use ATP, this form of energy, to turn carbon dioxide, the gas the plants suck in, the gas that we breathe out, into sugars. So if we answer the next question down at the bottom, in the Calvin cycle, what gas is used to make sugar? We're using carbon dioxide. So plants suck up the poisonous gas carbon dioxide and they use it to make sugar, which is another form of energy. This helps us out because it's getting rid of all the CO2 in the air and giving us energy. So when we eat the plant, we're eating that sugar, we're getting that energy. The light in this whole diaphragm, we already talked about, this comes from the sun, okay? And what is the product of photosynthesis is a quote unquote waste gas. Well, this waste gas, lucky for us, is O2, or another word for that is oxygen. So once again, this is important for us because photosynthesis gets rid of carbon dioxide in the air and it's giving us oxygen to breathe and sugar to give us energy. All right, so let's go to the next page. Hopefully everything now makes sense, a little bit more sense. If we go to the next page, why is it called the light dependent reactions? What does it mean to depend on something? When you depend on something, you need or require, and in this case, we need or require light, sunlight particular. What does it mean for the next question when we are independent or we don't need it? It means we do not need, because we're independent, in this case, light. So that part of the reaction can take place in the dark if needed. Next question, which Mr. Hill and Mr. McKittrick said that you guys did a pretty good job on. What is photosynthesis and why is it important in life? Hint, think about what it gives us and how that helps keep us alive. There are tons of different answers that you guys could put for this question. Some of the things that I think are important to realize is that photosynthesis is important because it gives 2 things that are super important. It gives us O2, or oxygen to breathe. So it literally is giving us the air that we breathe. And it's giving us sugar, which is a form of energy. Without this, we would have nothing to eat, we would not get energy, and we would die. Okay. Another reason that photosynthesis is important is that it helps get rid of harmful gas that could poison us if it builds up in the atmosphere, which is CO2. All right. So it's giving us oxygen, it's giving us sugar, it's giving us a form of energy, and it's getting rid of this harmful poisonous gas that could build up in the atmosphere and suffocate us. All right. Another reason that you could say kind of that it's so important is that without it, there would be no life on Earth. The reason for this is we wouldn't be alive because we wouldn't have oxygen to breathe, we wouldn't have energy, and we would suffocate from carbon dioxide. These should now help you answer the last question. What would the world be like without photosynthesis? I think I'm going to hold off on giving you the answers for that because I think I kind of summarized it in this question. But hopefully now these answers will help you answer the last question. So what I want you to do from here is go back to yesterday's assignment. And now that I've gone over all the correct answers, make your corrections. Then go to Google Classroom. I've created a short Google form, a little quiz that we want you guys to take to make sure that you guys are really solidifying this, really getting the correct answers, really understanding these words that I went over: reactants, arrows going in, and products, arrows coming out. I would never make you guys memorize a diagram like this, but I will expect you guys to be able to read a diagram. Same thing next year when you guys are in chemistry class. You guys are going to be expected to know reactants and products, and that's part of the reason we're going over it. The whole point of photosynthesis is it keeps us alive. It gives us the air that we breathe and the energy in the food that we eat. And that's why we're spending time right now learning about this. I hope you found this video helpful. Once again, go back and fix yesterday's assignment and then take the little quiz posted in Google Classroom. If you have any questions, please let us know by leaving comments in the Google Classroom or emailing myself, Mr. Hill, Mr. McKittrick, or Miss Perez. Hope you guys are doing well. Talk to you later.